who is chewing my trainers tonight, which if I suddenly start going like this, it's because I'm trying to get them off my trainers. It's lovely to see everybody again. We're just going to go around and do some brief introductions, if we may. But first of all, Carl, can we come to you, please?
Yeah, my name is Tring-Willis, and I'm Community Development Manager at Derby City Council and working as part of the team responding to the COVID crisis in the city.
Lovely to see you as always, Carl. Tracy.
Tracy Harrison, I'm the CEO of Safe and Sound, which is a charity that supports children and young people who are at risk of being exploited, and that's in Derby, South Derbyshire and Erewash.
Wonderful, thank you. Chris.
Hi, good evening everybody. So I'm Chris Hobson, I'm Director of Policy at East Midlands Chamber. We're a Chamber of Commerce and we cover Derby, and it's great to be involved today.
Oh, thank you. Matt.
Hello, Councillor Matthew. Hiya, Councillor Matthew Holmes, Deputy Leader of Derby City Council.
And you see, we've got another Matt tonight, which is because Sophie's not here tonight, but Matt.
He's had a haircut as well.
I have, yes. So I'm the stand-in for Sophie this week, and I'm Matthew, and I work in Amanda's constituency office.
And do a fantastic job as well. Thank you, Matt. It's always very, very much appreciated. And if you look on our Facebook page, you can see Matt's before and after in terms of his hairstyle. But I'm sure we can talk about that later.
It's a very drastic change.
So without further ado, Matt, can we have the first question?
Yes, the first question pre-submitted tonight is, how does everybody feel about the new guidelines?
Chris, can we come to you first on that?
Yeah, sure. So the guidelines following on from the Prime Minister's announcement on Sunday, and then we had on Monday further detail in that 60-page document. And then for businesses in particular, my area of interest, there was a raft of guidance that came out on Monday evening, which was around how businesses, when appropriate and when safe, might want to look at getting back into the workplace. So types of measures they need to do. So it's been really welcomed. Our businesses have been doing the right thing and managing and trying to get by with the various support that's been available. But they've also wanted to have, I suppose, a direction or I think the term used was roadmap, wasn't it, in terms of how they can go back safely when they're able to. And I think particularly the guidance that came out for businesses on Monday evening, if anyone's not seen it, it's gov.uk, it's on the website. It's actually pretty clear for businesses and organisations, and it does spell out what as a business you can be doing and you shouldn't be doing. And so the feedback we've had from that has been quite positive. In terms of the wider 60-page document that came out on Monday, it's a step in the right direction for our members, but I'm sure the panelists will have views, perhaps not from a business perspective.
Well, no, thank you. And I was going to say Carl next, because clearly the message has changed, and I know you deal with sort of the public, if you like, and volunteers as well. How have they taken the message?
I think in the main this week, it's like anything, it's guidance, and so some people interpret it differently to others. And I think our role has been about trying to provide some reassurance to residents of the city as to what that guidance actually means for them. We do a lot of work in the city with the retailers. Our public protection officers are out giving advice to retailers, businesses in the city, as are our environmental enforcement team and our trading standards team. So I think we've got a common agreement of what the guidance is. We're able to validate whether certain business premises or retail units should be open or not. And so we're communicating with each other, so we're ensuring that we're giving a consistent message. As far as the stay alert, I know that there's been some frustration to that as to what does that actually mean. But I think in the main, people do understand those common sense measures. We've got some great retailers in the city who are operating their stores very well. And I think in the main, I think I've said it before, our communities, our residents of the city in the main are actually adhering by the social distancing, which is fundamental to the guidance moving forward.
No, thank you for that, Carl. It's interesting. And Tracy, because obviously has the stay at home and now the stay alert, has that had any impact in terms of the vulnerable group you deal with?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it allows us to plan for the first stage of that recovery and that moving forward, because a lot of our work's been from home and virtual work with our children and young people. and it's allowing us to plan that first stage where we might be able to meet a young person on a park and do some activity and interaction with them with a safe distancing. And also it's allowing the team to start having some opportunities to go back to the office and do some teamwork and looking at that next stage. So we'll still do some working from home, but I've been into the office, I've cleaned it, I've got the gloves and got everything ready. So on Monday morning, we're going to go to the office and have a team brief to try and plan that next stage of recovery, to give the best support we can to the vulnerable people in our city, and allowing us to work with other charities to do that.
And you do amazing work, just to say that, Tracy, and thank you for all that you do. Matt Holmes, since we've got two Matts tonight, any further thoughts on the Stay Alert message?
No, I think it's a sensible step, to baby steps, as the Prime Minister said quite rightly, to hopefully moving forward and trying to get the economy moving a little bit, but obviously very cautious approach to it. And I think it is a very inherently complex process. I don't think it's fair to say that the government haven't been clear. I think that if the steps we're taking have been very clearly mapped out in my view, and you just have to use common sense and everyone be alert and ensure that we don't trigger a second wave. That's the key, because if we go too quickly and we do too many things too soon, it's going to create a problem for us again, and we'll have to then rein it all back in again, and we're back to square one in terms of almost a full lockdown. So I think it's sensible to take it step by step. I fully agree with what is allowed now, a little bit of loosening the guidelines, but we just need everyone to be sensible and everyone to use common sense. That's the main thing. Common sense is key. Social distancing, work from home. If you can work from home, work from home. It's only if you can't work from home, you talk to your employer and you make sure that environment is going to be safe and it's going to be following the guidelines. It's just all these things that are just common sense to get the whole economy working again, our whole society, our whole community starting to work, or at least take some steps forward towards hopefully a longer term view.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and I know I've mentioned this every week, but it is about, and we cannot afford to have this second rise in the curve, because it would just be devastating. It would be devastating, I think, because we lose more lives, but also what would happen is clearly the economy. I'm just not sure it could take that knock again. So no, I think you're absolutely right on that. Matt, have you got another question?
We have. How have charities adapted to the changes COVID-19 has imposed upon them?
Okay, well, I think we can probably all answer on that, because I know your membership would include charities as well, Chris. Let's go to you first, Tracy, if we can. What have you had to do to?
So I think most charities, I'll talk for Safe and Sound, but charities have had to look at doing things differently. So largely virtual contact and support with young people, partnership meetings, working with others. So I think the three key bits for me is how can we maximise what we can achieve in this situation safely and give the best service we can. And the second one is how can we work with other charities? So what we've seen is charities and volunteers and people coming together to be able to support the city and vulnerable people. So, from Safe and Sound's perspective, we've been supporting children with exploitation, but we've been giving advice about food banks. We've been giving advice about other finances, about directing them, supporting with mental health and bereavement. So it's been about charities working together collectively to support young people. And I think the third key bit is to look at the finances, because like businesses, like families, like everybody, it's hit charities quite hard with the financial situation. So it's about trying to be as lean as you can and maximise the opportunities you've got for funding. There has been some emergency funding from both the government and from charitable organisations. So they're the three key areas really, and looking after staff, looking after volunteers, making sure they're okay, because it's affected them as well, and trying to do the best you can with what you've got, which is no different to businesses. And for me, for Safe and Sound, because I've got to get it in, so I'll get it in now, the big part is about raising awareness, because there is no doubt the risk of online grooming has never been higher. So if I can make one plea to anybody who watches this now or watches it afterwards, check what your children are doing online, just the same as you check if they were going to the park or going to the shops. Who are they with? What are they doing? And what are the settings? And please, please, please keep the children safe, because that's been a huge priority, raising the awareness across the communities, because that's my biggest fear. Online grooming's there, and we need to prevent it happening. Sorry.
Tracy, what you say, absolutely. And you just making me think, you know, what we must do, and this is an offer, we really should be doing something around raising the awareness. And I think it's absolutely crucial. We don't talk about things enough. We don't talk about mental health enough. So we don't talk about grooming. And absolutely, you know, I think, you know, all respect to you for highlighting that. Matt, have you seen anything from this perspective in terms of from a council or NHS point of view?
Well, I think Carl will probably be, I don't want to give Carl a hospital pass, but you're best placed really to give an overview of the council's response in this area, I think, because it's about the hub pulling those things together and then obviously filtering through the issues and ensuring that we reach out to the organisations to support. But Carl, I don't know if you could add any.
Yeah, in respect of how a charity is responding to it, obviously, as Tracy mentioned, there's some national and regional funds been made available, but also locally, Derby City Council's made available a small emergency grant to grassroots organisations in the city. It's not a lot of money, but it's critical at this time that it might cover some of their outgoings, some of their insurance costs, things like that. And I think I just checked the figure when I left the office today. I think we're up to our 50th grant that we've paid out for that as well. Wow. So they've been going out to the small grassroots neighbourhood level groups. In addition to that, we're also working on bigger grant funding around our food provision in the city. So we've been doing some work with Foundation Derbyshire and a few other organisations in the food arena. And I think, you know, and Tracy will be aware of this because she's involved with it. But, you know, also this week we made some real headway in getting together with other charities to look forward as well. So it's not just about responding currently, but how are we going to move out of this in the future? And I know Tracy and a number of others are involved in a youth alliance, and that's again talking about the future. How do we recover from this, and how do we bounce back? So I think there's quite a plethora of different options available to groups. And again, we continue to provide that advice around how to mothball buildings, how to be leaner, how to reduce your costs during this time. And sometimes that, you know, to an organised, you know, we work with a lot of church halls and a lot of community centres. And sometimes it's those basic kind of advice that can enable them to save money at the moment. So yeah, I think, you know, in the main, there's quite a few things going on.
It's amazing, isn't it, the kind of things that are going on? And Chris, you get a whole perspective, I guess. But how are people adjusting, particularly in the charity world or not-for-profit?
Yeah, so and I used to work in the charity sector as well, actually. So it's a sector that I know quite well. And I think to pick up on, well, I think both Tracy and Carl have said it. It's good to see charities coming together and working together more collegially. You know, as with any business, as Tracy says, and the support that Carl was talking about, it's important that they're supported to run themselves in a way that you know, that helps pay the bills and deliver the services that they need to deliver. And it's really tough, and I know how tough it is financially for charities at the moment, as well as everyone else. I suppose one different perspective that I bring in, which I'm really encouraged by actually, are the number of businesses that were already doing this, but they're starting perhaps a bit more to see opportunities to get more involved in the community and charity sector. Because there's a lot, not just in terms of money, but money is always important for sure, but in terms of lending skills or expertise or resources, it's something that there's some really great examples of where it's been happening. Hopefully that can continue to happen more. And also, I think it's important to say there's a lot that the business sector can learn from the charity sector in terms of approaches to working with staff and community. So at the Chamber, you know, we really do believe that successful businesses and thriving local communities go hand in hand. And hopefully, you know, as we move on to whatever comes next, some of the new relationships and new ways of working that have been brokered between the private and the community sector, you know, can be built on and will last and won't just go away. It's definitely a hope for us.
Amanda, may I add?
Yes, and then I'll come back to Tracy. Yeah.
Just the reason why I sent that question to Carl, and you know, it could be a tricky question, but he's handled it really well, and it demonstrates this is how it's working. Really, it's I'm a councillor, so I'm deputy leader of the council in a senior role, but also I'm a ward councillor. So across the city, 51 councillors, 3 per ward. We're getting, you know, daily queries from anything from help to get a prescription, or somebody needs assistance with shopping or anything like that. But we're also getting contacts from businesses, we're getting contacts from charities, organisations, and the way things have been set up have been fantastic with the council, because what we can do is say, okay, thank you for your inquiry, we'll put you in touch with something or get the information. You can go into the central hub, top down, filters through, make sure all the right people are talking to all the other right people, and then that advice can come through directly from them. It enables safeguarding and everything's done correctly, and then the right resources get to the right people, and that's worked fantastically well. And because of that, with Carl's work and his team and down to a neighbourhood level, we've really started to see a real expansion. We've talked about this in previous weeks on this Q&A about how the community is really, even though we're all isolated more, it's strengthening. And I think exactly what Chris has just said, we need to grasp that. And I know officers in the neighbourhoods have talked to me about it, about how do we keep this going? How do we actually use this in the future to actually build a stronger community? And I think, if anything, and that there are going to be some positives from all of this, that is going to be one of them, where we're working together far more in the charity and the voluntary sector, and everybody, you know, is working together as one.
Yeah, that's a really valuable point. Tracy, you had something to add?
Yeah, just a couple of things from what Carl said. First one, what Carl said was, I think charities and probably and business, local businesses were working well before this happened. So this isn't something new. We've been working together for a long time and breaking down those barriers and not doing separate things in isolation. So I think we're on a stepping stone anyway. So I think that's made it easy for us. That was the first point. And the second point, what Chris said about businesses learning from charities and vice versa. I was part of one of these Zoom meetings around what are charities doing, and I talked about pro bono work and on how actually businesses help charities with pro bono, whether that's finance, whether that's, you know, marketing, etc. And I actually suggested, and I don't know, I think we're all old enough, no, probably one Matt isn't, I talked about Swap Shop from Noel Edmonds.
Oh yes.
Actually, why don't businesses work together and swap services? And that's actually been taken off, Chris. So there is a Derby Swap Shop website which has been started by local businesses, and you can swap marketing for a business plan, and it's really taken off. So I think there is something that there'll be a legacy from this, that businesses are swapping services and charities and helping each other without a penny, you know, swapping hands.
That's a really important point, Tracy. And if you could share that swap shop detail with us, we'll put it on the Facebook as well and get it so that everybody can have access to it. And it is I'm just thinking, tomorrow we've got our community meal, so that's something that we're from a head high point of view, that's done monthly. It's a free community meal, and well, actually, and we do a supper as well. So it's with the YMCA, it's with sometimes with St Martin's, lots of different businesses, lots of organisations. It's been a real challenge this time, because we're trying to do it so that we can get people eating virtually together, and we're trying to cook a free meal, and we're trying to deliver it, and but the point is, it's a challenge, but it's a good challenge to do. And it's exactly like you say, it's about communities coming together and doing something, and you know, so important really. This is the way forward. Let's not lose that. And we see people week in, week out on these meetings, as Carl and Matt will say, and everybody's saying the same, that the feeling, the way people are relating is just so much more powerful, seems so much more stronger at the minute. So we must not lose that. Matt, what about Matt? Another question?
I think it's something really, but what is being done to make sure volunteers aren't able to take advantage of people who are announcing that they are vulnerable, whether on Facebook or through the Derby Hub?
Oh, right. Let's come to that. That's an interesting one, Matt. I can see you've got.
Yeah, so that's the point. I'll pass on to Carl, but when I said safeguarding in the previous answer, that's what it's about. You know, we know and we welcome everybody's pulling together, and neighbours are looking after neighbours, you know, and that's absolutely fantastic. But we were very keen very early on to ensure that safeguarding was at the forefront of everything we do, so that nobody was taken advantage of. And unfortunately, it's horrible to say it, but there are people who are still looking to take advantage of the vulnerable and any advantage they can, even during this national crisis.
Can I just tell you, Matt, what does that look like? Sorry, what do you mean take advantage?
Well, okay, give you one example.
Yeah.
And it's awful, really, but so offers for shopping. Just excuse me a second, sorry, that was my phone. Yeah, offers for shopping. So somebody says, I can't get out, I need some groceries to get in from the supermarket. If you get someone on Facebook or whatever in a community group saying, yeah, okay, where do you live? I'll do it for you. And they take cash off the person and don't come back. And that has happened. That
Really?
that has happened. So that's an example. And there are, that's one example, but you can imagine, horrendous things could potentially happen. So that is why safeguarding is so important. So Carl, I don't know if you can offer us sort of an overview of what the council's doing in terms of ensuring that.
Totally. I think actually the question is a bit wider as well, because we talk about what is being done to protect vulnerable people by volunteers, but also our volunteers against those people who are exploiting the situation. So it works two ways. What obviously we worked at pace to establish the hub. We have a process whereby if you are interested in volunteering, if you are interested or if you require support, to essentially contact the Derby Direct number, which is 01332 640 000. If you phone that number, you'll be triaged by our Derby Direct staff. So they'll basically look at what your needs are. And that might be something that can be met through either one of the existing retailers' doorstep delivery schemes. If that's not feasible, they'll take further details and you'll go through to what Matt said is our ward coordination team. At that level, volunteers are basically assigned to those in need, and they are volunteers that we've got some basic checks and balances on. The vast majority of our volunteers are already connected into voluntary organisations in the city. So where we've seen that mutual aid response, which is we've seen on Facebook and other social media platforms, ours is more structured in the sense that actually a lot of these volunteers are already connected into local neighbourhoods. There might be members of a church group, there might be a community centre. So it gives us an additional layer of safeguarding around knowing that individual. And it's about being sensible and applying common sense as well. Why act differently under these circumstances as you would have prior to that? So if somebody is contacting you and asking you to take cash, would you ordinarily do that under ordinary circumstances? So we're not discouraging people connecting with their neighbours. We said right from the beginning, try and resource solutions for yourself locally. But if you don't have that, there is the assurance that you can contact us at Derby Direct and we can take you through that process and provide you some guarantee around the fact that we are safeguarding and monitoring and checking in on both volunteers and those in support of need. But that really kind of, would be my response to that.
No, thank you. I'm going to come to you after Tracy, Chris, if I may. But Tracy, what about yourself? Is there anything? Do you find that either volunteers are taking advantage, or it's a complex question, isn't it?
It is, and if I can say, before I was CEO at Safe and Sound, I was a police officer for 32 years, so I've worked around scams and people being exploited for a long time. And there's a couple of points. I echo everything Carl said, and for me, the sad fact of life is that there will be those that are making money out of this situation, and so twofold. If you want help and you can't ring the line, speak to a family member or a neighbour and seek their help rather than from a stranger, because if a stranger's knocking at your door and offering to help you, that there's something likely not to be right. It should be somebody you know or a neighbour. If it sounds too good to be true, it will be too good to be true. So if there's an offer, because that's the other scam that's taking place, that there's offers of, buy this for this amount of money, or I can get you this. And so if it sounds too good to be true, it will be too good to be true. And if you don't know who you're dealing with, don't deal.
No, very, very wise words. Thank you. Chris, anything to add to that?
No, I think the others have said it really well. Yeah, as Tracy said, if you don't know who you're dealing with, then no, don't do it.
Yeah, no, and I know, as you know, I volunteer with the Hub, Carl, and it's difficult when I see people. They are, they are vulnerable. They are afraid, and I think we have a joint responsibility. And I have to say, people I'm going to are lovely, and they're just so grateful. And I would encourage anybody, if you do have a little bit of spare time, even though it's now stay low rather than stay at home, you do actually really, really help people. And the number again, because I know this now, 01332 640000. Is that it?
That's it.
Brilliant. Thank you. Matt, next question.
Next one is, how do you think international business will change after this pandemic?
Oh, wow. Chris, I think that's for you first, and now I'll come to Matt.
Yeah, I'll take this one, shall I?
Yes, thank you.
It's a really good question, and one that's I can only share thoughts at the moment, because who knows in the long term. But I'll start by actually giving a really good example of a Derby business who just today or yesterday actually made an announcement that they've opened up a North American office. So it's their first overseas office, and they've opened one up in North America. Blog Digital, those that know them, and the reason why they've done it is because they see it's a massive market, and they see a big opportunity to do things slightly differently. They've got so lots of organisations are going to have their traditional customer base that might be slowed down right now or struggling, and we're not quite sure, or they might not be quite sure how that's going to recover. But what they're doing is they're looking to diversify or innovate or move into new markets, whether it's domestic or overseas. And so I think there's an opportunity there for businesses that are in the right mindset and have the right products and services to actually be bold and look for new markets and new opportunities. And actually, the way of doing it will potentially be easier as well. So yesterday, I had a Zoom call with a consultant in Canada, and we were talking about setting up. He was talking about the types of things that you need as a business, a UK business, to be successful in Canada. You know, from a regulatory point of view, etc., etc. Now we have done events doing business in Canada or doing business in Australia or doing business in Brazil. We've done those sessions before as a chamber, but it takes quite a lot of organisation, because you need to persuade people that there's enough there for them to give up a few hours a day to drive to where the meeting's going to take place, to come into the meeting, and then to drive away again. And there's a cost associated with it. You need the presenters to kind of be on board. Actually, we can do these sessions really easily now. We're going to set up an online session about doing business in Canada, and it will take, I don't know, a week to pull together. And you know, even if half a dozen people turn up, they'll get some really useful information. We're also working with a business that prior to all this organised trade missions over to China, and we're working with them to do an online trade mission, essentially, which will be a bit more involved than just a roundtable chat. But actually, we'll get more people engaged in something that previously the cost of doing it and the time of doing it would have been prohibitive. So in the here and now, markets all over the world are challenged, and that's unavoidable. But actually, I think there can be more and greater opportunities for businesses willing to think differently and take a bit of a risk. And actually, the initial outlay of exploring those opportunities is really low. It's, you know, it's 1 hour and your own cup of tea in order to sit down.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's going to be opportunities, and I know there's lots of talk about what's going to happen to international travel. I don't think that will necessarily be, and it will come back to a certain level. But from the conversations I've had over the past few days, past couple of weeks, in terms of exploring new opportunities, it's not going to be that as detrimental as it could have been, would be my thought.
Do you know that what I love about these meetings is people just give honest views, and that is really encouraging to hear. And like you, I mean, I've had a meeting yesterday with Switzerland, and then I went to Holland, and then Cyprus. I actually didn't physically want to go to Cyprus.
It's like Eurovision or something.
That's exactly what I said. I said Cyprus. I always like the Cypriot songs in Eurovision, but yeah. So Matt, I mean, you're obviously really close. What's the council?
Well, I mean, if both my work and council work in the NHS at the local trust, and just before this meeting, now I nearly didn't make it. I was rushing. I'd been on a Zoom call with my colleague and someone from America. So you know, and it is a very good way of adapting an alternative to face. And I think that whilst it's going to be tough for some countries who have very defined cultures about the importance of face-to-face meetings, and that means a lot in terms of business relations, whether it be building up a relationship from a council's point of view or a government point of view with the counterparts elsewhere, there is there certainly was a very important onus on face-to-face and that kind of thing. However, there's a reality now as we obviously move forward for the foreseeable future that can't happen. So I think with us leaving the EU, it is important for us locally and nationally to start obviously looking outside of the EU for trading partners and building up relationships. And the Derby City Council are very advanced in that. We have very good relationships with China, India. We're looking even towards North America. Obviously, we have cultural ties with Japan through Toyota as well, and we're looking to see what options we have there. And all of those options may seem a little bit, it's a hard sell for the local people, because at the end of the day, they want decent roads, they want the bins collecting, all the things that the council quite rightly should be doing. But there is another area of work to actually ensure that the city thrives and it has an economic growth, especially now, because we're going to be building a recovery plan, because we are going to be hit quite hard as we move forward because of this. So I think, these kind of meetings are going to be obviously essential, and I think that everyone's going to adapt towards them and actually grow to like them. And I think a lot of business can be done that way. It's never going to replace some of the face-to-face, but certainly in the medium term, it's going to be the way to communicate. And I've embraced it. We're doing things very differently in the council, and it's now creeping into everybody's lives. And it's kind of like the moment that we've been waiting for to actually make that leap. And we have, and we're all embracing it, from a family to quizzes on Zoom or Skype calls and all of that. And it's going to become the norm.
Yeah, brilliant. Tracy, do you have anything to add? Oh, sorry, Chris, do you?
Just super quickly, because I think Matt's absolutely right. And one of the interesting things from a business point of view, yes, face to face has certain benefits that you just can't recreate over something like Zoom or Teams or whatever you end up using. Although I do think we're all learning new skills around how to communicate effectively on these platforms. But one of the things that I've personally found really interesting and useful, as everyone watching might feel as well, is previously, Amanda, when we'd meet in Westminster or in a business premises, and you automatically, you have a certain, persona about you. I'm not describing that very well. The point I'm making is, when you meet someone now, you're seeing their living room or their kitchen, or straight away it breaks down a potential barrier, and you feel a bit more intimate straight away, like you have a connection with someone. And that's very subtle but quite powerful, I think, when it comes to business relationships or anyone's relationship, to be honest. And I do think it has a value. Yeah,
actually, that's a really good point. And I keep on meaning to push a bookcase in. I really have to get a bookcase and stick it behind me. But Carl, we've got your clock to talk about. But anyway, Tracy, anything to add?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things. It highlights to me, going back to the charity work that I do, there is international trafficking and there is international exploitation of paedophiles. So what we're seeing as a positive, that international, we need to work with other countries to combat some of the risks of exploitation. And I don't think, international level, enough is being done on that, so there is some work to go. On a lighter note, I'm just trying to imagine my international holiday on Zoom, where I can have a beach on a screen, I can have a glass of red, and I can pretend to be having that international holiday and to be in time. I'm just trying to imagine how I can make Zoom work to pretend I'm on holiday. So there's some scope there, I think.
A few glasses of red.
There's nothing like sun, though, is there? That's the thing. I mean, it was lovely. We've been so blessed. Actually, that's been the one thing. If you're lucky enough to have a garden or go out to do a walk, it's been great. Carl, anything to add to that?
No, I think everyone's kind of covered it. And I think there are certain there's, as we've spoken week after week, there's going to be some real opportunities come out of this, and I think there's a window of opportunity. And we need to make sure that we act fast to capture that, before there is a slip back into the old ways of working. I think, we need to see what opportunities are created by us developing a new normal.
We almost need a charter, don't we, that we all stick by or something. Matt, next question, please.
Yeah, the next one I think is for you, Matt Holmes, which is, can you explain the new tip opening procedures?
Oh, God, yes, I don't think anybody else
We're
can.
not all getting that.
Yeah,
That's all yours, Matt.
so Rainsway Household Waste Recycling Centre is going to be open from this Saturday, but hold on a minute. Don't think that it's
Okay.
opened. You could just there's rules here. We just need to try and manage it. We need everyone to work with us. So there's a number you can ring to book a slot, and there's also a way you can do it online as well. So the number, and we'll probably be able to post this.
We'll get it.
Yeah, so it's 0333 200 69 81. So 0333 200 69 81. You can book a slot via that. It's much easier though to go online. So if you go to Google and type in Derby City Council News, you'll find the link there to actually get yourself a quick account called My Permit, and you can go in and book a slot. And they're available 15-minute slots. Social distancing is being adhered to. So you may have to wait a little while to just go in, to drop off your waste, but it's all been organised, and that's the way you do it. But you must book through My Permit or ring for a slot. You will be turned away if you don't have a booked slot. That's really important to understand. So there are some, other rules and regs and things to understand in terms of visiting at this time, obviously during the COVID-19 issue that we have, and they will be on the website as well. But if it will be on there if you go and log in. So there you go. We have opened it as promised. I know last week I hinted that we were working on it, and now from this Saturday you can visit so long as you've booked a slot.
That is great news. I can't move out of my front because I've had a bit of time to do some gardening. I didn't know you could get so much ivy off a fence, but anyway.
I know, it's crazy. I think it'd be a lot of relief for a lot of people, but obviously don't forget that we are still, maintaining a black bin service, a blue bin service for your recycling, and a Best Endeavours brown bin service. So we do say to people, if you can keep it at home, then please do that. But also you have the facility there for your standard waste in those particular bins, and we will collect them.
Wonderful, thank you.
Can I thank you? My brown bin was emptied on Tuesday. Thank you.
That's all right. Well, the thing is, we've had to try. In my ward of Mickleover, that area was the first day for the re-established Best Endeavours. I'm calling it a Best Endeavours service. Somebody else might be saying anything else, but it's the best way I can describe it. And not every house, it was about 60-something% that was actually collected, and unfortunately the other households didn't, including mine in Mickleover. And what we're saying is bring your bin back in, and we'll do it again as a priority in those areas that were missed 2 weeks later. And that's the best we can do at the moment, and we just need people to be patient with us. But the reason why not every bin was collected, apart from the fact that we're having to adhere to social distancing, all things we've described and the challenges we've got over the many weeks we've been doing this now, Amanda, that means we can't have a full service, is over 100 tonnes were collected on the day, the first day, 100 tonnes, which is an absolute record. And that's why it was just sheer amount. And, it will get a little bit better, but please just bear with us. Not every brown bin is going to be collected every collection day. I think that's a fact for the moment. We just need residents to be patient with us.
And just out of curiosity, how do you measure 100 tonnes? What happens? How do you know it was that volume?
I think it's basically when it's put into, because it has to be checks and balance. So it's the actual dump into the receiving centre will tell you. I'm assuming it's a big thing that's got a weight on it. I've never actually seen it, Amanda, but they know they can measure it as it comes out of the truck into the receiving centre for distribution. So so that's absolutely. Well, Carl might know a bit more about it.
Do you know a bit about
well, there's a weighbridge. I mean,
there you go. One of those things that they pull in, virtually they pull people into, isn't it? When they want to check a lorry, same thing.
I mean, just to add to that, I think it's been an incredible achievement, and I do think it's fair to give a shout out to the team at Street Pride. I mean, to give you an idea, last week they collected 616 tonnes of brown bin waste.
Wow.
And to give you an idea, the most ever before that collected was 388 tonnes. So you can see that there's that increase in demand. And I think the record for one day's collection was 186 tonnes in one day. So that's a phenomenal amount. So,
that is phenomenal.
And I think the message with Rainsway Centre as well is, do it if it's a priority. You know, if it is a case that you can bag it, we do now have an best endeavoured brown bin service. So, you know, if we don't need to put additional pressure on that service, if it's brown bin waste, you know, and he can hold on to it, great. So for now, just use Rainsway for that priority of clearing that kind of bulky waste.
Oh, thank you. Matt, another question, please?
Yeah, I just says I think one thing that we've all probably seen, which is really good, is that so many people have taped thank you letters onto the bins to thank the refuse collectors.
Yes, yeah, that is lovely. Yeah,
So,
I think I'm out with the refuse collectors in a couple of weeks, aren't I?
In a couple of weeks, yeah, you will be, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So the next question then is, how do you think children and young people have been coping with the changes to their lives that COVID-19 has caused?
Oh, well, we can all talk about this personally, I guess, but Tracy, let's go to you first.
I think what we've seen is children that have been, you know, very brave, very strong in the main. But I think as time's gone on over the weeks, children have got more, you know, frustrated and bored. And certainly from the work we've done, the engagement's been harder as weeks have gone on, and that isolation's had an impact. So I think it's, you know, it's been around talking to them, communicating with them, keeping them up to date, just the same as we wanted to be updated as to what's happening. I think this last week, like a lot of adults, they were expecting something to change from the news. And I think this week almost seems like a bit of a down week, because I think people were thinking we're all going to be able to do everything again. And that's what children and people are thinking. So I think this week's probably the hardest week that we're finding. It's about looking at different ways to do things. So that, you know, you can do a lot of things virtually and right across, not just the charity sector. There's a lot of activities online, and we've learned a lot from kids online, because they've been online far more than we have. So they've been teaching us how to do things online, how to work in the virtual world. And, you know, from my own perspective, my kids, you know, have come home from uni and come home. So I feel like I've got Christmas at home nearly every week. We've been playing board games and activities. We were sat in the garden last Saturday playing I Spy. I mean, I've not played that for years. So on a personal note, it's been lovely to having the kids back and to have that family time that we've perhaps not had. But I think the biggest worry for me is the isolation. You know, we've been working with children and they've suffered bereavement. It's not our main domain, but, you know, they haven't had that support to go and speak to the friends when they've, you know, had a bereavement. They haven't been at school to talk to somebody. So I've got a bit of a worry that some of the things that have been happening to children, they've not had that wider support that we would want to give them. And I think there'll be a bit of a knock-on effect on that. And, you know, I think we have to put children first and vulnerability, you know, at the heart of everything we do, and plan to get back, you know, supporting them as much as we can in whatever way we can. But I think it's been hard. I think they've adapted great. They've taught us some things, and we've hopefully helped them with some things too.
Thank you. Carl, any other thing to add?
No, again, I think there's a number of charities in the city that are still functioning. They've got new ways of working, like Tracy mentioned. We have one colleague who works in our office who's doing virtual meetings and telephone check-ins with people who works for a charity in the city. So, you know, Tracy's absolutely right. There'll be some work to do after this to ensure that people are prepared, you know, and get the support that they need.
And Matt, what about yourself? How are you? Because you've got one of your daughters at home.
Yeah, so Ella, who's 21, she's at college. She's not at college, but she's doing her course remotely now in the performing arts. She normally lives in Leicester to go to the college there, and you know, she'll be ever so embarrassed if she knows I'm saying this, but she's coping really well. I mean, she's got diabetes type 1, so she's got extra challenges in terms of in terms of isolating and just being careful. And I think Ella and many others like her have taken it incredibly seriously and understood and been engaged in what's going on and listening to the advice and like I say, taking it really seriously. But it is tough. If they've got friends and boyfriends and girlfriends that they haven't been able to see for weeks now, that's an added stress and strain and worry for youngsters. And but you know, I actually think that the children and young people have handled this incredibly well and embraced the guidelines and helped the country get through this initial phase. And you know, and I think you know, that's something to be proud of. But yeah, it's hard for them. Like I say, I've got my council role, I've got my NHS role, so I'm still going out and about quite a lot to do some of that work. That's the essential work. Obviously, I work from home as much as I can, but so I can't imagine just being stuck in the house like my daughter has for, well, since the beginning of it, and we do have to be supporting them, because I know, like Tracy said, there was an expectation that something big was going to change, and I think the media have probably got a little bit of responsibility for hyping that up, really, and when they shouldn't have done, but that's another thing. But yeah, we've got a long way to go, and I think we need to make sure we support them as parents, as friends, as teachers, as charities, and make sure they're supported too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Chris, what about yourself?
Yeah, so I suppose, again, from a personal perspective, I've got an 11-year-old and a 10-year-old. So I think initially massive excitement about not having to go to school.
Yeah.
That subsided quite quickly, and actually my 11-year-old's desperate to go back now. Having additional opportunities to exercise outside now is really important, I think. So apparently Pokemon Go is still a thing. So my 11-year-old is spending a lot of time on Pokemon Go, catching Pokemon around the streets where we live. But I found as a parent that I've had to make an effort to get, particularly my young one, actually, to get up and to go outside, have his time outside when he's allowed it. And when he hasn't, if there's been days when he's just kind of flat out refused, you can see it has an impact on he's just grumpy. It does have an impact on mental health, as it would on anyone. And so I think making a conscious effort to do things together as a family, and to be outside together as a family, which perhaps before would have been too busy to do, but that's been really important. And I suppose the final kind of thought I'd make is, if you think about the circumstances that we're living through at the moment, they're pretty exceptional, and it's tough. And there's no point pretending that it's not tough. And so when there have been flare-ups or temper tantrums or people being upset over silly things, and that's just me. The message that I kind of say is, you know what, it doesn't matter. It's okay. It's okay to get annoyed and upset, because this is a really tough period of time. We're not doing what we normally do, and actually sometimes just coping is doing well. Just coping is doing okay. And I think getting that message across is, and they are doing well, I think, and sometimes they might just be coping, but generally doing well. But certainly being outside has been incredibly important to us, and hopefully we'll manage through however long it takes before things do get back to a bit of normality for them.
Yeah, it's no, I agree with you. I did brownies for 20 years, and that play and that interaction is just so important. Seeing, especially when at that sort of around about 10 age group, it's just so important. It really is. Or you can hear my dog is barking. This is Bob. He's very poorly. What's Bob? Talking of dogs, this is what Alan has done to my trainers. Well, I've been sat here looking. It's all very soggy. And for me, my daughter, she's just had a baby, as you know. Bella is 6 months old on Saturday, and it's like, gosh, where has that time gone? But I am also concerned for my daughter being at home. Her husband is a nurse, and so she's had an awful lot of time by herself, and her maternity leave has been taken up with her and her baby, which has been lovely, but at the same time has been very, very isolating, and it's been a real challenge. Let's have, I think we've probably got time for one more question, Matt, please.
Next one is, how are our key workers and volunteers coping with the stress of the roles they now have?
Let's get Chris. Should we come back to you? I know we just couldn't finish, but what thoughts on that?
How are key workers and volunteers coping with the stress? The best people to answer that will be those people. So I think it's the work that people have been doing while a big chunk of the country has had to stop and slow down is absolutely amazing. It's fantastic, and I know everyone says it, but I don't think we can say it enough. And the applause that we're all coming together to do, and the various other ways that people are finding of marking the appreciation that we have for these people, I think is brilliant, actually. I think we can't take and we're not, but it's important that we always remind ourselves not to take it for granted. And I hope we don't take it for granted afterwards either. And I know that there's been some specific government support and also lots of amazing fundraising efforts as well to support those individuals that are key workers or having to work in services that that we're not able, that are essential at the moment. I suppose my hope is that as things settle and the things get moving again and open up again, that it's not forgotten, and that the effort and sacrifice in many cases that people have had to make isn't a flash in the pan, and it's remembered and properly rewarded. But I can only imagine, particularly for some people who are right at the centre of some of the terrible things that have been going on. So my kind of hats off.
No, absolutely. Carl, have you?
Again, from the particularly from those colleagues that we're working with in the city, I think we mentioned before, we've seen some absolutely fantastic examples of staff working in new areas that they've never worked before and really rising to the challenge. There's a great deal of support for each other, and we continue to put wraparound support staff, checking on their well-being regularly. Of course, next week is Mental Health Awareness Week as well, so it gives us an additional sharpening of the focus on that subject. But yeah, I think those that I'm working with, they've certainly shown extreme resilience and pretty exceptional efforts during the last few weeks.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it, Tracy? You must have seen it as well.
Yeah, and I think I've got to say, people who work in the charity sector or volunteer or some of the caring roles, they don't do it for the money, Amanda. They do it because they love what they do and they care about what they do, and they show courage, resilience, commitment, passion, and drive to make a difference. And that's exactly what they're doing. They do it every day. They've just stepped it up a gear. They absolutely do it every day. And I think they don't do it for the money, they do it because they care, and I thank each and every one of them, absolutely. And my staff, other charity staff, everybody I know who's in that arena are doing an incredible job, and I completely, love them all to bits.
Here. Couldn't have said it better. It's just like they are absolutely amazing. Matt, anything to add to that?
Well, when you say key workers, the thing is, you start listing a few, and you're going to miss some out. Supermarket workers are their key workers. They've been there from the very beginning, never stop. Royal Mail staff, of course, and then the more obvious workers that have been constantly supporting the country and communities throughout. They all need to be thanked so much for the work they're doing and continue to do, because we're not over this at all yet. And then obviously in the care sector, whether it be NHS workers, voluntary staff within that sphere, and also care workers as well, of the the whole of the health service, if you like, doing fantastic work under very difficult circumstances. And I know that although we squashed the peak or the curve, but there's still an issue. There's unfortunately hundreds of people still dying every day, tragically, and that means that there's far more being treated. And I can't imagine what it's like, or what it's been like and continue to be like on the front line in those circumstances. And they're doing an absolutely amazing job for us. But yeah, there's so many people out there. They know who they are, and we need to find ways to thank them ultimately. So when we clap tonight on the doorstep, give some extra claps to everybody else that's there. I know you are anyway, but everybody that's been over the last couple of 3 months has been working so hard, and are going to have to continue working very hard in the months to come.
No, absolutely. Yes, Tracy.
Sorry, I've got to do it because I was a police officer for 32 years. I think the police haven't got a good deal out of this some of the time. I think they've had a raw deal. They've been out there 24/7, putting their lives at risk, dealing with people, dealing with domestics, increased domestics, dealing with a lot of issues. And the media have given them a really difficult time about some of the work that they've done. And I think it's been totally uncalled for. And I think, if I can say one big thank you, it's my old colleagues and colleagues up and down the country who are making a difference and saving lives and putting their lives at risk. And they're getting the stick for occasionally, they might give a wrong bit of advice, or something might not go too well. So, we shouldn't criticise them. They're a fantastic group of people who make a difference. So, yeah, I've got to get that in.
No, absolutely. You're right. Yeah, absolutely, 100%. Lots of things, food for thought tonight. Matt, I think we're at the end of it, Matto. Have we got a quick short fire question, or is that it really?
One quick fire short one. So with hairdressers and barbers closed, who has the wackiest or worst lockdown hair that you've seen?
Well, I know the
I know who this is. Shall I say it, Amanda, or do you want to?
Go on, you say
it's
it.
not, well, it doesn't exist anymore, but genuinely, Matt had the most outrageous. Honestly, he looked like I've forgotten the name. The Grinch. But it wasn't. But it wasn't green. But honestly, it was something to behold. And I've got to say, Matt, I'm sorry, it was you.
We won't even go.
I can try and.
Oh my!
I wasn't exaggerating.
Oh, wow. How come you've got that there? Is it just one of those things?
There's a few people that remind me that
it's gone viral.
Oh dear, that is glorious. I won't even ask anybody else on that question. That is wonderful. And we've got a hair competition. We've got a before and after competition. Although you have no competition, Matt. You've got to win that competition, to be fair, even though it's on our Facebook site. Can't leave without coming back to you, Matt Holmes. I need a cake update and a Thor update.
I haven't actually. This week has been gone so quickly. I have been speaking to our cake baker, and she's still supplying key workers with cupcakes and everything. But I haven't seen Thor for a little while. But honestly, this week has gone so quickly. It's unbelievable. For me anyway. Can I just say, has anybody else developed a bad back as I have? And I've worked it out that because I've been working far more from home for the council and obviously the NHS locally, I've made the big mistake, I think, of sitting on the couch with all my laptops and phones around me. And that was a big mistake. And I've moved. People who are keen viewers will see that it's a slightly different backdrop for me. And I'm actually now in my desk chair. And I don't understand why I haven't been at my desk in doing it. Big mistake, and it's really hurt my back. So I would say just look after yourselves, make sure that you take breaks, you exercise, and have a good posture. It really makes a difference. Someone with me that are getting a little bit old now and needs to be looking after my body a bit more. But yeah, get a good chair. Don't just sit on the couch doing your remote working. Just get up, have some exercise, and sit properly. That's my tip for this week, Amanda.
That's wise words. I'm just going to come round for a hot tip from all of you for this week, because I can't believe where the hour's gone again. But no, absolutely wise words. And before, just to finally say thank you so much. It's always a great pleasure to have everybody here. It's just been so informative. Matt, come to you. What's your hot tip before we go?
I think mine has been keep in contact with family. If there's family you've not spoken to for a while, or even if there's family that you ring every couple of days, don't let those few days slip by. If it's a 10-minute phone call, an hour phone call, just keep ringing family.
No, so true. Chris, what about yourself?
I think, reflecting on the last conversation, I think actually saying thank you to someone when they help you, whether it's someone at the shop or whatever, the actual process of saying thank you, I think it makes them feel good and it makes you feel good as well. So physically say thank you.
No, that's another great one. Matt, any additional one to what you've just said, or?
No, Carl must have one. Come on, Carl.
Come on, Carl.
My hot tip is this, obviously as we start to have conversations around loosening the lockdown, that doesn't mean that we are loosening or reducing down our frontline service around the COVID response hub. So even if it's for whatever reason, you've managed to resource a solution yourself over the last few weeks, it might be that your solution was a volunteer or a family member who was shopping for you was furloughed, who no longer is. So actually what we're saying to people is, the number still stands, 01332 640 000. It could be as people start to return to work, they are essentially that support network. So if you've not phoned us before, please, if you need to phone us, we're there for you 7 days a week.
Thank you very much, Carl. Tracy?
Yeah, we often dwell on things which haven't gone well. So my thought is every day think about something that has gone well, something you've done or something that you've been involved with. So don't dwell on the mistakes or things which haven't gone so well. Think about something positive every day that you've done or seen.
Yeah, that's such wise words. I've actually got two tips. One is do not put a little puppy down, because I don't know how I'm going to take that little puppy out for a walk tonight because I can't keep my shoes on. That's my first hot tip. And the other one is, on a serious note, is do you know, I think we just need to be kind to ourselves sometimes, and I genuinely mean that, and I know I say it often, but sometimes we are a little harsh on ourselves, and I just think we need to be a bit forgiving to ourselves. I think, Chris, your point where you were saying about the kids, it's okay, you know, we just need to be a bit more gentle to ourselves and to each other. So thank you so much. I really do hope that you'll come back and join us again, Tracy and Chris. Matt, Carl, are you with us next week? Fantastic. Yep. Matthew, are you going to grow your hair again?
Not that long.
It was wonderful. It's made us so happy. Thank you so much. I genuinely mean it. And see you again soon. Take care.
Yes, take care.